Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture.
And I'm Phil Mitchell from WhatCulture.
And this is the news.
So the big news coming out of last night's Monday Night Raw is there were four major NXT call-ups, perhaps the four biggest names in NXT at the moment. Those are Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, Ricochet, and Aleister Black. So they all appeared on the show. They were announced as part of the show by Triple H in his opening promo, and then they got tangled up with various main roster wrestlers throughout the course of the night. So Ricochet teamed with Finn Balor to face Lio Rush and Bobby Lashley. They won. It was entirely too long, but Ricochet really got over by the end, did some flippy stuff. It was cool. Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, they reformed DIY, and they beat the Revival in kind of like a miniaturized version of one of their classic takeover matches. And then finally we got Ali Black, for some reason, going 7 minutes 50-50 against Elias in the second last match, which was a bit weird. But Adam Wilborn, I know you're a lot more positive about this than I am. What do you think? And do you think these are permanent call-ups, or do you think they were just one-offs? Or perhaps were these guys going to be like free agents like Heavy Machinery and Nikki Cross?
I'm hoping that they are. This isn't their official call-ups, because I feel like then they've just sort of wasted them. And it has sort of diminished them when they do eventually debut, hopefully on the Raw after WrestleMania, as we were talking about just before we started filming. But I also hope they make sporadic appearances, because I just love seeing those guys. As a fan of NXT, I love seeing those guys getting involved with stuff on the main roster. Look, I just enjoyed them being on the show because it was better than what we usually get on Monday Night Raw. Ricochet, I thought, probably looked the best
He was
out of
the
all
biggest
four
star
of
of them, yeah.
He came out, he not only looked phenomenal in that match against Lio Rush and Bobby Lashley, but he also got a promo afterwards, and you could just tell, we've worked with him in the past, we know how much this means to him.
Big
really nice to see how happy he was being involved with stuff on the main roster. Gargano and Ciampa beating the Revival was a difficult match, because as much as I was excited about it, I suddenly thought as it started, oh God, how do they not bury either both the NXT champion and the North American champion, or the new Raw Tag Team champions? But they went, yeah, we've buried the Revival loads before.
I know how they do that. They don't book the match.
Yeah. But it was enjoyable nonetheless, even if it was, like you say, a miniaturized version of that classic rivalry from NXT. And Aleister Black, yes, arguably his match went a little bit too long with Elias. But I like seeing these guys on the main roster. The crowd in Lafayette were a bit like, huh?
I don't think that's the crowd's fault. I think that the crowd were presented with a bunch of people that they've never heard of, and they reacted as you would when you're presented with a bunch of people you've never heard of. Now, like, we could talk about this for hours, we really could, but we'll keep it brief here. I think that like the volume of people who actually watch NXT is greatly overstated, and when you bring people in cold like this is to be expected. Like Jimmy from Lafayette, who watches Raw and SmackDown every week and doesn't have a network subscription, he doesn't know who these people are, and that's on WWE. I thought they made a mess of it. Yeah,
arguably this could be seen as like a soft launch for them, so obviously if they do debut on the Raw or SmackDown after WrestleMania, there's going to be a huge pop because of the crowd that's in that audience, but then people who aren't those sort of people who are watching it will go, oh no, I remember those guys, they were great on Raw a while back. So hopefully that is the plan, although who knows with WWE, they probably just went, bit of a dull show this week, should we just get four of the best performers from NXT to turn up?
Get some of Triple H's kids in.
Two titles as well.
Two
titles, the top two champions.
And also it's arguably a little bit of a push to try and make people watch the North American Championship match between Johnny Gargano
which is going to be great.
Velveteen
Which is
Dream.
going to be great, just like Ricochet Adam Cole was last week.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
And NXT's back on top form on week-to-week television, so let's just hope that the call-ups can kind of get back into a good groove as well.
Let us know your thoughts on that in the comments section below.
Well, they're all going to agree with you, and they're going to hate me. So
but let's move on anyway to the chosen one of WWE. And yes, of course, it is Becky Lynch. It's been reported by Shagger Dave in the Wrestling Observer that Dave Meltzer, that Vince McMahon absolutely loves Becky Lynch. He said that she needs to win the Royal Rumble. It's emerged, regardless of how this affects WrestleMania plans. He's a huge fan of hers, which doesn't make sense. Why has he suspended her then?
Well, it's This is really encouraging news.
Yes.
It's a rare example of the company's point of view aligning with the fans' point of view, because Becky consistently gets the loudest reactions on any show. She is an absolute star, perhaps not in a business sense quite yet, but in terms of reactions, in terms of her character work, she is absolutely fantastic.
One question I wanted to ask you, because as you say there, is that the company is supporting her as well now, so arguably they're letting her do a lot of other stuff that they wouldn't let other people do. I saw some people saying, following Elimination Chamber, following the bit where she just wailed on both Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair and hit them, well, not just squarely on the back, let's say, that some people were saying, oh, well, if this had been anyone else, like a Nia Jax, for example, you'd have been moaning that she's injuring performers and she's being a dangerous worker. I don't agree with that, and I don't think you do either.
No, I don't agree with that at all, because there's precedent for this with Ronda Rousey. Like, when Charlotte beat Ronda up at Survivor Series after that epic match, Charlotte beat the absolute tar out of her with those kendo sticks. And it was kendo sticks, right? Kendo stick.
Ken, yeah.
Ken Boom's brother. And she absolutely bludgeoned her. She bruised her, she battered her, she bloodied her. It's quite clear to me that when these beatdowns happen, Ronda Rousey is saying to these other women, just lay it in thick. Like, I'm here, I'm a wrestler, I don't want to be padded, I don't want to be protected. You go out there and batter me, because it'll make for a more effective angle. I think there's a difference between that and being a negligent, sloppy injury merchant like Nia Jax.
Yeah, I think it's well known that not only with Becky Lynch and Charlotte, but with anyone who are friends, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, for example, if they're friends outside the ring, they know they can work a little bit stiffer and sort of they'll say to someone, look, just absolutely batter the crap out of me this week. Whereas Nia Jax doesn't go into a match with Bayley and Bayley says, it'd be really good if you could drop me on my shoulder. And obviously the Becky Lynch, the classic one, it'd be really good if, completely unforeseen to everyone, so they can't promote it until the night after, if you could just explode my face, as Stephanie McMahon would say. So I think there's a big difference there, but great to hear the news that
100%.
Becky Lynch is Vince McMahon's chosen one, and probably why she is basically becoming Stone Cold Steve Austin Mark II in a lot of stuff they're booking her for.
And to wrap this one up, let's just say that it's great to have this narrative that Charlotte Flair is the hand-picked company golden girl who gets all the opportunities, who is getting shoehorned in. It's really good to have that just utterly blown out of the water. Vince loves Becky. He was insistent that she win the Royal Rumble. He loves her so much that he had to be talked into the idea that Charlotte should be added to the match. It's really good, really heartening stuff.
Fantastic.
And listen, I think Charlotte Flair's great, by the way.
Oh, she's doing some great work.
She's probably my favourite of all the women on the main roster, and I think she should be in the triple threat. The shoehorn stuff is purely storyline. It is not real. It is a storyline. You've been worked. Anyway, Lio Rush. He's been a scamp. He has been a cheeky little scamp, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Which is no surprise after, was it October 2017 when Emma got released after losing to Asuka, and he tweeted, guess she wasn't ready for Asuka. Not a good move, and apparently he is in hot water once more. So this is according to Mike Johnson of your favourite PWI Insider, not related to Jackson Pollock, who claims that he has a habit of rubbing people the wrong way backstage. And while he obviously can't confirm that this is factored into his recent booking, obviously he cost Bobby Lashley the Intercontinental title at Elimination Chamber, and he was pinned again last night on Raw. It kind of adds up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like this little rascal going around annoying people on air, which is good. Annoying people backstage, not so much.
Yeah, I suppose it's one of those things. When you're a 24-year-old piece of gold like he is, and he's such a good talker on the mic. We've seen this across the company over the last few years. If someone is that good a trash talker in the ring, chances are it sometimes goes to their head and it continues backstage.
Yeah, I wonder who that could be referring to. Enzo Amore.
Let's move on, shall we?
Yeah, let's not talk about Lio Rush.
A major piece of news for you. Michael Cole is leaving WWE commentary.
Definitely.
In a few years, probably.
Okay.
This is being reported by the Wrestling Observer.
Got you, nerds.
Yeah. Not quite. It's not going to be happening just yet. Basically, what they're saying is there was a conversation between, I think it was Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer, is that right?
Shagger Dave and friend of the channel, Brian Alvarez.
Indeed. And they were discussing Michael Cole's future, and they're talking about how they're bringing in so many younger commentators with an eye to, almost akin to what they did with JR, slowly moving Michael Cole away from that main commentator's position. But yeah, it's not going to be happening for a good few years yet.
Yeah, this has kind of sent speculation spiraling out of control. There are, like we joke about, he's definitely leaving, but there are a lot of people are actually reporting this as Michael Cole is on the way out, when really the conversation was they were speculating that JR was obviously decreed too old to be the voice of WWE programming at one point in his career. And Cole, I'm off the top of my head, I'm not sure how old Michael Cole is, but he's been there for 22 years. The thought is that within the next few years he will reach a similar point, and at that point Vince McMahon may think, yeah, maybe it's time to start transitioning for someone like Tom Phillips, who was named by name on the Wrestling Observer Radio there.
Tom Phillips, who we recently discussed as the most fine WWE commentator.
Yeah, the most very okay,
yeah.
And the best aircraft selfie sender as well. But 50 years old, Michael Cole. Thank you, Phil, behind the lines. That's a lot older than I thought.
Yeah.
Either way, like, Michael Cole is a very divisive figure. He is a consummate professional. He does exactly what his boss wants. He works extremely, extremely hard, and he knows what the hell he's doing. But he can be unbearable sometimes. However, I don't think changing him is going to change anything. I think production is the problem. You can slot Tom Phillips into that role 2 months from now, everyone's going to be saying the exact same things about him as they are about Michael Cole.
And certainly more about Courtney Graves and Renee Young, who once again were terrible on Raw this week.
All of them, can we just, like, I like Renee Young, give her another job in another company where she'll be used properly, but the rest of these twats, fire them into the sun. They're bloody awful.
Do you know what some might say? Some might say they just suck. And speaking of sucking, a big announcement was made yesterday that the first people to be inducted into the 2019 Hall of Fame is going to be D-Generation X. But it's sort of all of D-Generation X, which is a big piece of news in and of itself. It's not, of course, just Triple H and Shawn Michaels. Apologies to Hornswoggle, who just misses out. But it is going to include also the New Age Outlaws, X-Pac, and China.
Yeah, this is very sneaky, isn't it? This is very, very sneaky, because obviously China's entry to the WWE Hall of Fame has been a divisive issue for a while now. Obviously, she was a groundbreaking wrestler in the Attitude Era. She was really over. People forget how over China was. She was instrumental in getting Triple H over to a main event level. She was maybe not the best in-ring performer, and yes, her presentation did have its flaws. She used to sell nut shots, which was absolutely ridiculous. But she's the only woman to ever hold the Intercontinental Championship. She was the first woman to compete in the Royal Rumble. She is genuinely a groundbreaking figure. That's the argument for her being in the Hall of Fame. Now, obviously, the company's arguments against her, there's political reasons stemming from her relationship with Triple H, which, let's be honest, is probably the main reason. And there's the old Triple H explanation of not wanting his kids Googling China and finding her history with adult entertainment and substance abuse, and the way her life kind of went after WWE. This seems like their way of inducting China without really inducting China on her own, and they probably see this as a compromise.
I've got real mixed feelings about this.
Me too.
Because on the one hand, I think, well, it's great news. It's obviously a legendary stable, and if this is the only way we get China in the Hall of Fame, then fair enough. But as you say there, it does kind of feel, and like you looked at the package that they showed when they were inducting D-Generation X, and she was a very small part of that.
Yeah.
It was mainly all about Triple H and Shawn Michaels. And I do feel like she deserves, when you look at certain people that are already in the Hall of Fame and their checkered history, she deserves her own entry. But if this is the only way we get her in, or hopefully a small step towards her getting her own entry in the Hall of Fame in a few years' time, perhaps, it's only going to be a good thing.
Well, yeah, absolutely, 100%. I couldn't agree more. And like, I don't have the most passionate opinion on China in the Hall of Fame, but I will say this: if Coco Beware is in the Hall of Fame, there you go.
Let's move on to your Twitter questions for today. Though, don't forget you can tweet them at us at WhatCulture WWE.
Do that every day, please,
Yeah,
as you do.
Please do. We get loads in. We love reading them. First one comes from Carl, who says, do you think finishing moves should be scrapped? It's great to see a finishing move end a match, but half the time these days, wrestlers have to do it 3 or 4 times to win a match.
Radical idea. And I see where he's coming from. I don't think they should cancel, like, just get rid of them outright, because nothing, that's what you build to. You're supposed to build to the finish. The finishing move is the signifier of that, and without that you don't have an actual crescendo. However, I do think that companies, WWE and New Japan, who are bad for this as well, really need to put more protection into these finishing moves, because it gets to a point where they're just meaningless.
Well, it got to that point where, when they were building towards the Roman Reigns-Brock Lesnar match at WrestleMania last year, to build to that, every time Brock Lesnar hit an F5, he beat someone. He beat Braun Strowman, he beat Samoa Joe.
Yeah.
One F5 and that was it. And then Roman Reigns kicked out about 7.
28, yeah.
So But it was in the process of them doing that, people were like, this is so weird, he's only taking one finisher. So it's going to take a lot to rehabilitate finishing moves, but I agree that they should be more... Like Ruby Riott hit 2 Riot kicks last night. Granted, it was on Ronda Rousey, but they're called finishing moves for a reason.
Yeah, they need to be more protected, you're absolutely right. Like, people were so conditioned into thinking that these things are just weak and meaningless in the build to that thing when people start getting put away by one F5. It was like, whoa, what's going on? But I've just slaughtered them for this, but New Japan did a really good job with Kenny Omega's one-winged angel. Nobody kicked out of that move up until the day he left the company. That is the blueprint that they should follow.
And I think also they should put a little bit of stock as well in people ending matches without using their finishing move.
Totally agree, yeah.
Right, let's move on to the next question that comes from Fat Momoa on Twitter.
Fat Momoa, I've just seen the picture that accompanies this tweet. Thank you very much.
Hashtag Gangrel approves. He says, do you think Cena Angle would be a fitting last match for Angle at WrestleMania, because that's how Cena started, and if not Cena, who should he face?
I think it's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
As you said, that's how Cena started with the ruthless aggression thing and all that stuff. Great debut, great callback to that debut. Also, John Cena is a really safe pair of hands to work Kurt Angle through that match. Kurt, obviously, I still have a lot of nostalgia for him, but that man can barely walk anymore. He needs the right opponent. He needs someone who isn't going to drop him on his goddamn head. And while yeah, Cena isn't the best worker in the world, I reckon they'd go out there and have a fun little pantomime.
If not Cena, who?
Triple H. Oof. Same story, safe pair of hands, knows what he's doing.
See, when I thought of this, I thought, oh, do you know what match I'd love to see one more time? Angle versus HBK, but it's probably not a good idea. But at least we can get still another, I'm sorry, I love you moment.
How about,
just keep doing that, he has to retire everyone.
How about we recreate the 60-minute Iron Man match between Angle and Brock Lesnar? The answer to that is no, because Kurt would die.
Yeah, that could be it. Brock Lesnar just keeps F5ing him and build towards...
What, until he dies?
Yeah.
Thanks
for your years of service, Kurt. Final question today comes from Terry Angotto on Twitter, who says, should WWE replace Fastlane with King of the Ring rather than another boring and predictable pay-per-view?
Oh, yes, absolutely, but with a twist. I'm not too sure you want to have King of the Ring that so close to the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. King of the Ring should be back. I love King of the Ring. It should be a pay-per-view every single year. It's loads of fun, and while they don't always do the most interesting stuff with the King gimmick afterwards, apart from your man Booker T, go and do it, mate.
King,
there you go. While they don't always follow up in it in the most interesting way, I adore King of the Ring. It's part of my childhood. It should be in there, but perhaps later in the year. I would scrap the idea of 2 pay-per-views between the Rumble and WrestleMania entirely. Have the Chamber. You can use the Chamber to crown a #1 contender for the title that isn't chosen by the Rumble winner, and maybe put King of the Ring in the dead spot between WrestleMania and SummerSlam, perhaps.
Oh, I like that, yeah.
That is crap. Like, Money in the Bank's fun, but all that other bollocks, that backlash, go away.
Yes. Right, let's move on to today's and finally, and it comes from Steve, and yet again, it is another crap wrestling action figure. This one I really enjoyed. Feel free to send them to me on Twitter at Adam Wilborn, or send them to us here at WhatCulture. We want to make a little shelf of all the crap action figures if you want.
This one's
them.
actually not bad.
That's good, yeah.
No thumb in the bum though.
As you can see here, Andy Murray, there's a selection of toys that come with it. There's trash cans, there's really small ladders that go with it. And there you can see the little wrestler on the right there has got tiny little black dots for eyes, and I don't know what that is. Is that meant to be sort of silver abs that he's got there?
Steel abs?
Yeah.
He looks like he's got a bit coming out of his
But anyway,
hands.
more importantly than that, my favourite wrestling action figure is stood next to him, because look at those eyes.
Who's this buggly-eyed prick?
He's keeping an eye out for any attacks, whether it be from... Yes.
He's certainly keeping an eye out. Who's that supposed to be?
I have no idea.
Oh,
Just
God.
Luchadors.
Luchadors.
So thank you for Steve on Twitter for sending us that.
That's something else. Thank you, Steve.
Feel free to send them more to us and your Twitter questions at WhatCulture WWE, and you can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Adam Wilborn. He is.
And I'm at Andy H. Murray.
And our lovely editor is at Phil My Chambers. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks to Andy. We will see you soon.